just feel like Gordon Bombay would have taken his career to even further heights.
Everything's flashy, everything's cocaine, everything's
Fun.
Open wide for some soccer!
I don't care what your personal thoughts are at home. I care that you hate the
Call
Cowboys.
this college rule!
Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Experience Podcast. I'm Chris. This is Dom. Do us a favor. Smash that share button. Throw that like button out the window. We're right in the middle of a block of Brett Favre's backup quarterbacks. Who we got today?
So today, we're heading into the late 90s now.
That's right.
We're moving through on our timeline.
We're getting up there.
We've got a guy who is almost lost to history and could have been considered before Drew Brees the best quarterback in New Orleans Saints history.
And he has a story that told me at the end of this that I was like, I didn't even hear about that happening.
Oh, yeah.
Which is why he kind of is out of the NFL a little early.
Pre-Katrina, everybody.
Aaron Brooks grew up in public housing. I didn't know this. He grew up extremely poor in East End, Newport, Virginia, which is
Newport News, yeah.
which is just an extremely impoverished part of Virginia.
Yeah. Born March 24th, 1976 there. This was a time period, though, when he was a kid growing up, even though there's drugs everywhere, because this is, as a child, this is, being poured and filtered into the community and the violence associated with. There are a lot of fantastic athletes that come out of this area.
Yes.
And where sports is the refuge, and they just absolutely, if they're not caught up in it, man, they can really make something of their lives.
Well, I was going to say, I feel like it was like sports or drugs, and luckily enough, he was a amazing quarterback.
I was going to say they were kicked out of public housing because his brother got into trouble.
Yep.
Like, it was just it was a rough upbringing for him.
Yes, very, very rough.
Sports were his refuge, but he got to teach some of his younger cousins how to play football. A guy named Michael Vick and his younger brother Marcus there.
That's right. That's
this
very
is an
right.
area where when he was going to high school, his main rival in football and basketball was Allen Iverson.
Yeah.
Which is like, jeez Louise.
He went to Homer J. Simpson High School.
Homer Ferguson High School.
Oh, damn. Messed that one up. But yeah, I read that where you were just like, damn, going up against Allen Iverson. I mean, football, he was a good football player, but basketball, you're just like, God, that's got to be heartbreaking.
Oh, and just like, I'm really good too.
Yeah, I know.
And he is really good as well.
Yep.
It's just, we go listen to our Iverson episode if you want more information on that. But basically, he lit it up as a dual threat QB. He had a laser arm. He had fast legs. Michael Vick is even as quoted as saying, because both him and Marcus went to that high school, after he left, after he had his successful career there, and Michael went in, to start at quarterback, he said, I want you to make me as good as Aaron Brooks.
Yeah, and he was in the generation before running quarterback was like a thing. You know what I mean? So he was kind of like, I feel like his passing was kind of looked over because he was just like, yeah, but he runs the ball too.
And
you're like,
great passer.
Yeah.
He had a cannon for. Do you know who he reminded me of? Like, because I went back and watched him. Because you really didn't see guys like this where he wasn't like Vic, where he would just use his legs, just be like, screw it, I'm going to run. He would use his legs to escape the pocket,
to scramble,
and throw,
yeah.
or just like, I'm going to pick up this first. He reminded me a lot of Geno Smith with the Seahawks.
Oh, yeah,
Not
nice.
New York Jets Geno Smith, where quarterbacks go to, but like that same type of skill set.
Yep.
And God, was he good and just kind of lost to history. But he gets a scholarship, so he gets out of Newport News. Goes to University of Virginia. There, stays kind of closer to home. Redshirts his first year, back up in 94, back up in 95. And then in 96, he splits time with Tim Sherman. And they're a winning team, but they're pretty mid.
Yeah,
they have a lot of talent. They're starting to accumulate talent because you guys have like Tiki Barber, James Ferrier, Jamie Sharper, not Darren Sharper, but like they're outside of 95 where they upset Florida State. They're kind of just like a mid-tier ACC team.
But he does split, and I found this interesting. He does split time in what people would consider his prime, and a lot of people were saying like, in 96, would we have done better if we had just gone with Brooks
right
as our starter? And
but he's super raw at this point.
Yeah.
And they're not running like necessarily a complicated passing offense either. And like, I mean, you got Barber in the backfield, and then I think Thomas Jones is about to show up. So It's like, we're going to be a run-heavy team.
They are going to be, yes, a very run-heavy team.
97, he's a starter. 20 touchdown passes. He was second on the team in rushing. Led the team in rush TDs with 5. Don't end up going to a bowl game that
Now,
year.
7-4, but you see them going into this next year and being like, they're a pretty good team. They could like put it together, and they do.
Well, Florida State and Georgia Tech were both in the top 10, so that's who they finished behind.
Yep.
They go 9-3. There in 1998. There were their only 2 regular season losses. That year, he plays the hero in the rivalry game. I don't know if you saw against
I was
Virginia
just going to
Tech.
say the biggest comeback of their school history, which it's one of those games where you're like, God, watching that game must have been so fun because as a Virginia fan, you're just like, oh, we're done. They were down 29-7 and came back to win 36-32.
But he was magic as far as just like if you needed a big play, he could pull one out of his ass. Like just amazing. They go to the Peach Bowl that year. They end up losing to Georgia in kind of a marathon game, 35-33. Finishes that year though. His stats aren't necessarily sexy because you're putting the ball on the ground and legging them out, Chris.
That's very true because they are a very run-heavy offense, and he even gets runs. So it's like it's not the passing yards and the everything that you look at that NFL teams really look at as to like who to draft.
People aren't looking at the stat. If they're looking at the stat sheet, they're not seeing the whole picture.
Yes, exactly.
And it's not like his stats are bad. He had over 2,300 passing yards and 12 touchdowns and then 5 on the ground. It's just you're handing it off a lot.
Yeah.
You're kind of grinding out these games, relying on your defense too. It's like, but he's 6'4", 200 pounds. He could run, throw it like a laser, and he's entering what many at the time considered maybe the best quarterback draft class. Didn't turn out to be, but we just did an episode on a guy.
I was going to say it was looked at as you could see why he gets drafted so late in the draft.
And he's considered an afterthought.
Yep.
That's the whole thing.
Yep.
Because as we talked about, the guy from The Cosby Show was picked in the first round, second overall by the Eagles, Donovan McNabb. There were, 5 in the first round? Because you had Tim Couch, McNabb, Akili Smith, Cade McNown, and Dante Culpepper.
Yep.
But he doesn't go number 6. Sean King goes in the second round, who had just led Tulane to an undefeated season. Brock Heward goes in the third. Joe Germain goes in the Come on, man.
Joe Germain?
God.
So
wasn't he that kid on the District 5 fucking hockey team? No, he went to I think he went to Scottsdale Community College before he went to Ohio State.
Yeah.
So,
well, he did play on the Oreo line.
He did.
All right, boys.
What is this?
All
the
right.
Oreo line?
Calm down. Oh, man. But Packers, again, with their really good late quarterback drafts, pick him up and don't need him.
Well, pick 130. They need another quarterback because Hasselbeck's been promoted to QB2.
Yep.
Because Peterson went to start in front of the guy from the Cosby Show.
Oh,
in
yeah.
Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So they need a practice squad guy or a quarterback. They probably had him rated in probably the second round.
Yeah.
They took him at the bottom. I think pick 131 in the fourth round. So they probably had probably a high 2 on him where they're just like, we can't, we just, the value's too great. We can pick up a backup punter.
Yep.
Later.
Yeah.
Like some of these teams do. He ran a 4.53 though at I think it is pro day.
That's ridiculous for a quarterback.
And he didn't use his legs like his cousin would. Like to that extent or in that fashion.
Brady was running a 8.53, so I'm just saying that was
Nick Foles is being weighed down by his large penis.
biggest penis.
Shaq ran quite the fast 40 though.
First off, we don't know how big Shaq's penis is. This is the problem that we keep going into.
But we need to know. So if you know, DM us pictures of Shaq's.
Please.
But it's like the pack. They're just they're like Pokemon collectors.
Yeah.
They're just like, well, there's value.
There's value.
We flipped Brunell. We're going to flip Hasselbeck. It's like they're flipping houses, only flipping core. There's going to be an HGTV show called White Packers Executives Flipping Renovating Quarterbacks.
Man, honey and vinegar real estate. And I'll tell you what, we're buying up every house on the block. I'll tell you this.
Frank Roman. Shut up.
Now get down there and rip out those copper pipes.
So he doesn't play in 99 at
Nope.
all. I mean, we talked in our last episode, Hasselbeck barely played at all in 99. But the Packers, before the 2000 season starts, because they have a talented quarterback that people are intrigued by, and the rest of the league has teams that need one and think they can develop him, New Orleans offers him a trade.
And New Orleans is picking him up as a backup.
For Jeff Blake,
for
a
Jeff
guy
Blake.
we didn't do an episode on him, but he was a big part of the episode we did on East Carolina.
Yep.
It's a 91 team. So he's traded with tight end Lamont Hall to the Saints for linebacker Katie Williams and a third-round pick in 2001. And as nice as that Packers situation is with Favre, New Orleans is equally as good.
Yep.
Because you have a veteran, Jeff Blake, who's, he's been around the block a few times, and now he's on a good team, too. Because the Saints, even after that disastrous Ricky Williams nonsense, they're finally starting to put it together in 2000. So his quarterback coach, though, from, I believe, Green Bay, is now his offensive coordinator. I don't know if you saw that in New Orleans.
Every single one of these Packers quarterbacks that get traded to a different team, it's literally a coach that worked with him, and they're just like, no, I'm telling you, this guy is so much better than what anybody saw.
Like, Blake's going to play the next few seasons for us, but trust me on this.
Yes.
This is a very cost-effective deal. They start 7-3. I remember that they came out pretty hot. People were like, the Saints are good again?
Yep.
Is the Dome Patrol back? We were just asleep for the last 10 years. They're doing well with Blake. Ricky Williams got hurt, though, even though he had 1,000 yards in probably 9 games. Mm-hmm. The O-line is stout with Kyle Turley. We did an episode on. Unfortunately, Blake gets hurt.
Breaks his foot.
And you lose your QB1, and Brooks has to play. And I don't think they anticipated him playing this quickly.
Not first year, and not the way it went down with Blake literally breaking his foot, and then they have to, in his first game, go and play the returning Super Bowl champions, the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
First team ever to beat the Super Bowl champions on the road as his first game.
Oh, yeah.
So it's one of those things for Brooks where you're just like, oh, this could actually work out for us.
Well, he had a great season because he helped keep the team afloat. He went 3-2 down the stretch, which is what you needed.
Yep.
Because they won the NFC West that year. They ended up edging
10-6.
the Rams.
Yep.
Had over 1,500 passing yards in those final 6 games, 9 touchdowns. I mean, it's what you want.
Yeah.
I think I saw that his first pass was not his first pass, but in that first game against Oakland, he had a 53-yard or 33-yard touchdown to Willie Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like any given Sunday when they put Jamie Foxx in. Just that electricity coming in,
Yeah, definitely.
They end up making the play, and they lose the last week against the Rams.
Yep. And then make the playoffs and play
the Rams.
So this is the third time that they play the Rams this season, and they end up beating the Rams was this their first franchise win?
This was their
playoff win,
postseason win.
Yeah.
Because in our Dome Patrol, every single time they went to the playoffs, they lost.
Yep. So they end up beating the Rams 31-28. And a lot of people thought the Rams were going to beat them because they just beat them the week before. They were the Super Bowl champs coming in.
Brooks
and
had 4 touchdowns, though.
I was just going to say, he played so good.
Oh, when you watched that game, you were like, they got something now.
Yep.
They got something now. The Rams ended up having a furious comeback, though, because I think they were up 31-7, and then it was the Oz Hakeem fumbled punt, which ended up winning, which is just oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
That had reminder, it's not Drew Brees, it's Aaron Brooks who won the first Saints playoff game.
Very true. Very true.
Keep that in mind, everybody.
Then they go and lose against the Vikings, who were just a better team.
They got ambushed.
Yeah.
That was that Culpepper Moss.
Yep.
I mean, granted, the following week they just got annihilated by the Giants, but there was an experience disparity in that game. I feel like between the rosters, losing by 18 points, but 2 touchdowns in the game still wasn't bad.
Yeah.
And now we get into the window where he's the man, and New Orleans is almost but not quite for the next half decade with him starting.
Because this next season they go 7-9. He has 26 touchdowns, 3,800 yards, 22 interceptions, which isn't great.
It's very Jameis Winston-y.
Yep.
But in their final 4 games, they were outscored by 108 points. The defenses in New Orleans during this era were not particularly good.
No.
But he's throwing all over the field to Joe Horn. Oh, my God. This is when Joe Horn was like a top 3, top 5 receiver in the league, too.
Yep.
Still, finished 7-9. They were 7-5, and that's what you're going to see in all these. It's like we're in the postseason mix. We actually have a spot locked up, and
then they lose the last 3 or 4 games of the season. You're like, again?
Oh yeah, and after And
I was gonna say, let's talk about 0-2 because it's literally the same shit.
So 0-2, they're I won't say they're relying on it less, but Ricky Williams is gone now.
Yeah,
they traded him to Miami. And then Deuce McAllister's in. This is when he has that nice window of success, too. They start 7-2.
Mm-hmm.
They're rolling people. Has, one would argue, an even better season. I remember they played Pittsburgh probably in late September that year. The defense couldn't stop them.
Yeah.
Because that was a team with a shitty secondary. He was slinging it all over on them. They start 7-2, over 3,500 passing yards and 27 touchdowns. They have one of the best offenses in the league. Deuce McAllister had over 1,700 all-purpose yards.
Yep.
Horn's making the Pro Bowl. Like,
this was before Deuce got injured. Like everything's going up Millhouse right now. And then they go 2-5, I think, at the end of the season. They go so bad that you're like, it's literally back-to-back seasons where you're like, Jesus Christ, we need to figure out this late season because it's just so bad.
Like they lost 32-31 to the Vikings, 20-13 to the Bengals, who were the worst team in the league that year.
Yep.
And then 10-6 to the Panthers. You can't have that. But he's so good. He's so electric.
And the 10-6 to the Panthers, I read something about that where they were like, it was such a great offense for them to just get 2 field goals, essentially. It's like, what the hell is going on with that?
2003, this might have been his best season.
Yep.
Over 3,500 passing yards, 24. His touchdown to interception ratio this year is really good.
Yeah.
Where you know that like things are doing really well. He's doing really well.
3-1, which is crazy. Like it really is. That's like some top level QB play. But they go 8-8 again.
So they started 1-4 and then fought back to get 7-7. And then December 21st, 2003, they're playing. Did you read about this? Jacksonville.
Oh, I don't remember this.
So they're still because they're
still in it.
They're
at
still
7-7
in the mix,
yeah.
And it's one of the craziest endings to a game ever to keep their postseason hopes alive. It's basically like a Stanford band play. They call it the River City Relay, where it's just lateral after lateral after lateral.
This. Yeah.
Jerome Pathan scores. They're down 20-13. John Carney comes in to kick the point after touchdown and misses. Mm-hmm. And they're out of the playoffs.
Which is wild.
You can't make this up.
No.
Right? Like you can't, you just like, you're not supposed to lose like this. You're just supposed to be like, oh man, we lateraled it once and the popcorn guy caught it. Shit. Nope, we gotta bring everybody's hopes up and then crush everyone's soul. Oh God. But they're still good. They're still in that. They're still in that window.
Yep.
Still in that window of success. 2004, over 3,800 passing yards, 21 touchdowns, 4 on the ground. Very up and down season though.
Yeah, they go 4-8, and then they come back and go 8-8, but still miss the playoffs. And that's the thing that you see is they just don't have enough consistency throughout the regular season.
And he's lighting it up. And like if he was making these, it'd be like when his cousin goes into Lambeau and wins that game.
Yep.
In 2002.
His cousin. Only 16 interceptions throughout the whole year. So this is what they were saying from 2003 and 4 was he cleans up these interceptions and like his just quarterback rating is actually what you want it to be, where he's like consistent, but they're just not enough to make the playoffs.
Well, 2 teams that made the playoffs there in 2004 in the NFC, the bottom 2 seeds, were both 8-8 as well.
Oh, yeah.
They lost on tiebreakers to Minnesota and St. Louis. That's what screwed them. And you're thinking, he's still young.
Still young.
The window's still there.
Yep.
And then 2005 happens, and, well, Jesus, tap dancing Christ. Football, is not necessarily a priority at that point.
And
he's screwed. His teammates are screwed.
Yeah.
The city's screwed. So 2005, it was the Murphy's Law season, essentially.
Yeah.
I think people would have said, if they're going to have a losing season, they'll go 7-9. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong because of Hurricane Katrina at the end of August. They had to play their games, home games, because Superdome is not being used for football at this point.
Nope.
Oh no. City's underwater. Playing in Baton Rouge and San Antonio. It was a total mess. The whole season was a goddamn mess for the Saints. And Brooks as well. Only over 2,800 passing yards, 13 touchdowns, 17 interceptions. But he goes 3-10, and he's benched
at the
last 3 games.
Yeah, at the end of the season, he ends up getting benched because this is, for me, not his fault as to why they're doing so bad, that you just literally, you don't have any home games. You don't even really have a home to go to after you're on the road.
You don't have proper pro facilities.
Yep.
There's scuttlebutt that Tom Benson's going to move the team to San Antonio or somewhere else out of New Orleans because we don't know if the city's going to recover. It's
true.
He's looking after his own pocketbook. And you on that team, you have to be thinking like, what the hell's going on?
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing here? Like, we got to pick shit up right now. So after 2005, the Saints, they bottom out. They implode the entire organization. Jim Haslett's fired as the head coach. The entire staff is shaken up. They hire Sean Payton. They pass Drew Brees with his physical.
Yep.
For his, dilapidated shoulder at the time.
Thank God for them.
Could you imagine if they signed Culpepper?
Yeah.
And
then
we would be talking about the San Antonio Saints right now.
Yeah,
Let's
seriously
be honest.
though. Seriously though.
Oh God. But in 2006 in March, he's only 30 years old.
Still good.
Still viable starting quarterback. He makes it's like Dale Grubby. That was a bad move, Hank. It's a bad move. Because he goes to a team which was crappy.
Yeah, a really, really horrible Raiders team. And if you think that we're saying that, like being like, oh, they were so bad in his debut, he got sacked 9 times in his debut.
Oh God, that was the year they one of their wins was against Pittsburgh.
Oh, brutal.
And they had less than 100 yards of total offense. I think Roethlisberger threw like 4 interceptions. It was,
oh my God.
I drank so much to forget because they were so shitty. This Raiders team was so and because he was trying to come back hurt, they're flip-flopping him with Andrew Walter.
Yep.
Like it's like what we talked about in the Tim Brown episode. Everywhere I went, it was dysfunction.
So they go 2-14, which is a league worst. And he gets released, but there's a reason why other teams don't pick him up because he's 31 at this point.
He's 31, and he's recovered from his shoulder injury.
Yes,
Let's say that. It's not like he's Breeze and everything went wrong, and you're like, well, you just can't play.
No, he still can play, and I feel like he could still play at literally one of the higher levels of QBs in the league. And then what happens?
So he spent 2007 out of football. Mind you, at the time, he's taking physicals with 4 different teams, including Green Bay and Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. So he's wanting to get back into football, and as a backup even. It's not like he's just sitting out saying, oh, I want to be a starter and starter's money.
No.
He's coming off the surgery off of a torn pec and recovering from a shoulder injury. But what's possibly related to him not being signed is towards the end of the 2005 season, he really criticized Saints owner Tom Benson and the NFL in the wake of Katrina for the crappy conditions in the high school practice fields. They were using a baseball locker room.
Yeah. And
the weight room was not of professional football quality that they had to use during this. And they had to move for the NCAA volleyball tournament. So basically, you're being treated like a second-class player as a professional football player, everyone on that Saints roster that year.
And then on top of that, their owner was like, maybe I'll move the team. It was so badly handled by NFL and the Saints that he really ripped them did you say it was a CBS?
I think it was CBS.
Yeah.
He said, I don't think a couple million would hurt to make this team very comfortable every week. Which is a drop in the bucket if you're an NFL franchise.
No, it seriously is.
Like, what did he say here? And for those who don't understand, come on down here to San Antonio and see what our conditions are like. It's just bad.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not saying that's why he never played in the NFL again, but you would think a 31-year-old quarterback, as long as he's recovered from the injuries.
Which he did. That's what the thing that I saw was like he was ready to go again, and they were like, nah, you said that shit about the Saints, and this is a boys club, and we're getting you out.
And it sucks. It really sucks. And I had read about how he was very into the history of the game, into the history of the black quarterbacks, just like him, blazing a trail. He would save jerseys of guys like Steve McNair, guys we've talked about on this podcast, guys from back in the day like James Shaq Harris and Marlon Briscoe. Like, that window was so small with him, which sucks because he could have played another 3 to 5 years if his body held up.
Which I feel like he should have been a backup quarterback somewhere else, and everybody was just like, nah, we're good on that. You said that one thing that we didn't agree with.
Acting like a bit of a student athlete.
If you know what I mean.
But it's crappy the way that his career ended, but lately he's been involved in real estate and redeveloping the Newport news area.
I know. I saw that. He literally went back home and he's like, I'm going to make this better. And you're like, God, I actually really love that.
I got out and didn't do dog fighting.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to make things like bad news kennels. No, I'm not associated with that. Like, I'm going to do good things.
Yeah.
And, led kind of a quiet life.
Yeah. Post career. And great quarterback. One of those great Packers backups that I'm glad we're doing these episodes on,
Yeah. Did want to add, inducted into the Saints Hall of Fame 2014. And like I said, before Drew Brees,
he was the man.
I mean, Archie Manning never won any playoff games. Granted, those teams he was playing on, beer truck drivers as his offensive line. But still, like, first guy to win a playoff game for the Saints. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, the first almost marquee star that they had at quarterback.
I agree.
That where you didn't have to be from New Orleans or in the South to know who Aaron Brooks is. You'd watch NFL primetime and go, did he just do that?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
He was one of those national, players that people recognize because he really did have a window of 4 or 5 years that he was a top quarterback, and then whatever happened, man, going to the Raiders, all of that.
No, I don't think that helped him.
Exactly.
I don't think that helped him.
Exactly.
Over 20,000 passing yards though. 123 touchdowns for a guy picked at the end of the 4th round.
I know. That's why I love these Packers picks where you're just like, man, you guys really should have had a better team.
What did you do with those draft picks? Nothing that you got back.
They could draft quarterbacks. That's it.
They could draft them and trade them, not use the picks to draft other players.
Nope. That was it.
That was it.
All right. Thank you.